Ladies, gentlemen, and Nightfarers of all ages, last night we had the release of our newest Everdark Sovereign boss in Elden Ring Nightreign, Caligo Miasma of the Night. And let's just start off by saying this is an absolute visual spectacle of a fight. The music's amazing. The base boss is of course a beautiful encounter in general as well, but this one just one-ups it so unbelievably hard. That said, the fight can range from relatively tough to extremely easy, depending on how you build for it and how you prepare. And of course, being an Everdark Sovereign, this version of Caligo also has a brand new phase to learn, as well as brand new Everdark Relic that you can unlock at the end of it too. So let's go through what you need to know about Everdark Caligo. Starting off, the first phase is essentially just the same as the second half of the regular Caligo fight. He starts the encounter straight off with his flying ice bombardment maneuver, so don't just run straight ahead and use all of your stamina at the beginning trying to get to him. Prepare to dodge the actual flying attack, and then catch him wherever he lands. When you get him to around 60 to 70% health, he will try to enter phase 2. This is a super noticeable animation. He folds his wings into his body, a very deep blue mist starts to form around him, and he'll start to pull in all of the cold air. This initiates his big boy mode when he finishes it, which is straight up Velkhana coated ice armor on every part of his body, which is the whole sort of thing going on with his Everdark fight, the major change. At the end of his ice armor gaining animation, he will do a big pop of damage around him with some frost application, and this is a really strong time to use any attack that has iframes. Ultimates are fine here too, but he can't be hit by the sort of guaranteed ultimate stagger that you get from a lot of the ultimates during this animation, so I recommend saving the bigger boy stagger ults for when he's in the phase proper. That said, you can apply a regular stagger to him during this animation, and if you do that, he actually doesn't gain the ice armor and has to restart the animation from the start, which is also really good. The main reason I say this is while he is charging the ice armor is one of the only times that he sits still for an extended period of time. So it is a great opportunity to deal loads of damage, but only if you avoid the big pop of damage at the end of it, because otherwise that can be quite painful and apply a lot of frostbite right away. Immediately after getting his ice armor, he seems to always do the same attack. This is a slight hop to reposition, then he shoots out a giant icicle coming out of the ground, then he channels into it for a moment, and then it explodes into an expanding whirlwind of frost damage. The best way to avoid this attack is simply to run away from the crystal the second it hits the ground. The radius of damage comes from the crystal itself, so just run straight line away from it and you should be fine. Past this, the ice armor changes up his moveset while it's active. For some of its attacks, it just makes them literally stronger versions of what they already are, like higher frost application and damage on frost breaths while he has the ice armor on his head. He also makes more crystals while doing ice breaths too. For the wings, he does an attack where he sort of shoves them in the ground and then sends a wave of ice forward and creates a bunch of the larger crystals, but I believe the wings are also what lets him do his enhanced flying drive-by attack, where in this form he fires out a load more projectiles per run. They are all massive now, and they do way more damage too, so these ones are far more likely to hit you than his normal flying projectiles in the first phase, and if they do hit you, they hurt. This also affects his little leggies and his arms. They do get ice armor, but I didn't notice too much different in the moveset when they were iced up. In my opinion, the most dangerous part while iced up is his tail. He has so many just massive attacks with his tail in this mode, with gigantic range on them as well that will destroy your ranged players. Some of the tail attacks fire out projectiles, some of them have aftershocks on the ground after the tail sweeps past, which is quite nasty too, and importantly, he also uses these projectiles to set off the crystals. Some of his attacks will create a bunch of very big icy crystals that stick to the ground, and you want to think of these like remote detonated landmines. They will explode after a short period of time, just sort of passing I believe, but Caligo also has a number of combos where he will fire out projectiles from his tail into the ice crystals, making them detonate early and just cause a whole lot of chaos across the arena. Generally speaking, I highly recommend trying to stick to Caligo's crotch or around the base of his tail, as most of his dangerous attacks are worse at long range, and a lot of them can't even hit you if you're right up against his body. All that said, this is a fight where you get to control the moveset that he has access to. Hitting a body part enough times will break the ice armor on that part, and once that is disabled, his attacks with that part will go back to how they worked in the first phase. Every time that I remove the ice armor from 3 separate body parts, so 3 bits of ice armor destroyed, he would lose the rest of the armor completely, and every time that I've done this so far, he is also staggered at this moment. I don't know if that's 100% tied to the armor removal or just coincidental timing, but this is very big, because after he gets back up, he will immediately put his whole suit of ice armor back on with that same animation that he starts the phase with, which may sound like it's pointless to break it then if that's what happens, but he takes pretty reduced damage while he has the ice armor. The stagger from it is of course great, and importantly the animation where he puts his ice armor on is a really long animation where he only does damage right at the end of it. So if you just avoid the damage from the actual explosion at the end, either with iframes or honestly even just guard, you can get a ton of free damage in during the animation itself. That pretty much does it for the major changes in the fight itself and how to deal with them. It's honestly more of an overarching shift than it is a bunch of specific new attacks, which is sort of really cool to see with this specific fight. The reward for defeating it for the first time is of course 25 Sovereign Sigils, and then you can unlock the new Everdark Caligo Relic in the Collector's Signboard. This one is interesting because, in my opinion, it's just sort of worse than the regular Caligo Relic, maybe a side grade at absolute best. The original Caligo Relic is Frostbite in Vicinity, Conceals Self, which this one also has. Then Starting Armament has Chilling Mist as the weapon skill, which is pretty much equivalent to Starting Armament Inflicts Frost on this one, except that with this one you get to keep your base weapon skill and still have the frost buildup. Then the third line on the original relic is Increased Damage against Frostbite afflicted enemies, which is actually quite strong. And on this new relic, that's been replaced with Improved Physical Damage Negation, which specifically is 10% physical damage negation. And to be clear, a permanent 10% physical damage negation buff is genuinely not bad by any means, because a lot of the damage in this game is physical, but you're basically trading 10% damage boost for 10% damage reduction, but only from specific sources. So it may have its uses, especially if certain Everdark fights with lots of physical damage turn out to be really hard hitting, but I'd say it's far from just a direct upgrade. That said, now let's talk about everything you can do to make the fight easier. First things first, before you go into the expedition, go to the Collector's Signboard and start the Mountaintop Shifting Earth. Shifting Earths are good for their own reasons each, but Caligo is a frostbite dealing dragon. The Mountaintop has a few major things that are consistent drops along the way. Some of the minor bosses, such as the trolls on the east side of the mountain and the demi-human swordsman on the north side of the mountain, always have a frostbite buildup reduced dormant power option you can choose. You can take both of them and they stack. The dragon down in the valley that runs through the mountain this way always drops a dormant power that offers your weapon attacks an anti-dragon effect. This means that when you have this, you do 20% increased damage to enemies that are considered dragons. The main power at the top of the mountaintop, once you get up there, and for the sake of speeding your experience up, here's a nice trick you can do to skip half the climb up the mountain. After you do the dragon in the valley, just go up the Spirit Spring southwest of that, then run past the frost dragon, the giant frost dragon that spawns here. Tank the frostbite buildup because you'll just sort of get that as you run past. But then up here on this cliff, if you jump like this to this part around, then you can basically just run up the entire cliff diagonally up this steep section and skip most of the run, because at the top of this is the Site of Grace that's right beside the mountaintop power itself, nice and quickly. The power itself then, from reaching the peak of the mountain, is 50% reduced frostbite buildup speed, reduced damage when frostbite triggers and hits you, and it increases your damage by 15% for a short duration after frostbite procs, which actually does include when you get frostbite on yourself. And then finally you get the big boss ice dragon of the mountaintop as well, who is pretty easy to fight once you have all those other buffs, and especially if you have a fire weapon, and who then drops a guaranteed legendary dormant power when he dies as a nice little extra bonus. This means just by selecting Mountaintops, you get 3 separate frostbite buildup reductions at minimum, 20% bonus damage to dragons, 15% bonus damage for a short duration after having frostbite applied to you, and then also a guaranteed legendary. So Mountaintops is absolutely massive for this. You could make some arguments for the Crater Shifting Earth, perhaps, if you really want, for the bonus church, the guaranteed legendary, and lots of fire weapon sources, but all of the frost effects and the anti-dragon attack effect are just so good for this fight, and I cannot overstate that. Next up, let's talk Nightfarer choice going into this expedition. By far the one I think is the best for this is Wilder. He has relic effects directly related to fire damage on his character skill follow-up, or from the actual leaving fire behind after his ultimate as well, which means that he can have guaranteed sources of fire no matter what, including his ultimate itself, which even the base version is a nice big pop of fire damage. The grappling hook is just great for burst movement in general, which also helps to avoid a lot of the more dangerous attacks in the actual Nightlord fight, and past that, as a a strength main stat boy, he gets offered a really great selection of weapons for this fight during the expedition. Caligo is weakest to fire affinity of any of the elements, but also way weaker to strike damage than any other physical damage type, which for melee weapons arguably matters more even than affinity. And the majority of strike type weapons are strength stat scaling, and on top of this there are also quite a few very strong strength based strike weapons that are guaranteed to drop with fire affinity on them if you see them in the first place. Troll Hammer, Cranial Vessel Candlestand, Devourer's Scepter, the list goes on. Obviously, that whole part applies to Raider as well. Raider is also great for this for those weapon choice reasons, and of course his character skill offers a ton of on-demand damage negation for the more dangerous parts of the fight, and the totem is great for staggering and for the damage boost it offers as well. On either of these characters, your main goal is a strike weapon, ideally a fire affinity strike weapon, and in fact ideally 2 fire affinity strike weapons of the same type so that you can power stance them. I've also heard of people saying that if you can do enough stance damage to the boss during the phase transition attack where it's sucking up and getting up the ice armor, you can get a proper crit stagger, and then it interrupts the animation and she has to fully restart that very long animation from the beginning, being fully open to attacks again. And 3 raiders doing power stance jump attacks with good weapons can sort of just break that and loop it until she dies. Outside of those, Revenant and Recluse are great if you focus on fire spells with them specifically, and for that same reason, Duchess is decent too, but to a bit of a lesser degree, as in my mind the real best choices are either the characters that can get strike and fire damage on the same weapon, or the characters that can hard focus on spells to the point where they're just dealing pure fire damage. And on those characters, your main goal is again just to find a good fire spell, either a fire sorcery, which are a bit rarer, or a fire incantation, which there are quite a few of. Fire cathedrals are a nearly guaranteed source of fire incantations on seals from the seal box that you can find in them underground. That said, all Nightfarers can do this Night Lord, of course, but those are the ones that will generally have the easiest time when built up with the right equipment. Past that, during the expedition itself, you can do most of what you need to do on the Mountaintop shifting earth after the first circle starts to close in on day 2. This means you can also make time to do the entire castle at the center of the map, and do at least the majority of the Everjails on the map too if you are running an Everjail relic as well. Importantly, on top of this, a lot of the field bosses and the sort of mini bosses that are up in the castle, the ones that drop the little dormant powers, whether it's the trolls, the banished knights, or the crucible knights, they all have a dormant power in their pool that boosts all ailment buildup resistance. This will also significantly help with the frostbite debuff in the Night Lord fight itself. Past that, affinity damage negation is great as he does just a buttload of pure magic damage with his attacks. At least half of his moveset doesn't even have physical components, so magic damage is plentiful. Then probably the biggest one for this fight, in my opinion, is finding a weapon that has the passive taking damage boosts damage negation. This passive essentially prevents anything that is a multi-hit attack from being able to kill you unless the first tick of damage would have done the job and killed you. And this fight is like 90% multi-hit attacks, breath attacks, whirlwinds of ice damage, you get pelted with icicles back to back to back. All of that is stuff that will be significantly helped with this passive. So high recommendation on searching for that and taking it if you find it. Other than that, fire damage boosts, physical damage boosts, and general survivability boosts in general are quite useful, but for the most part, I'd say that this is arguably the easiest Everdark boss that we've had so far, as long as you actually try and build the counters to it, meaning fire damage and or strike weapons for melee, and then just doing the Mountaintop Shifting Earth event as well. That just about does it for today, everyone. The Everdark Sovereign version of Caligo Miasma of Night. The changes to the fight, the ways to deal with all the new stuff, the reward at the end, and then just a bunch of different advice on how to actually beat the boss easier too. I hope you've all enjoyed this, and I wish you the best of luck on your future expeditions. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.